Always good to see you. Good to be here. And I hope that I feel your energy, Bruce. And Bruce, you're talking about the boss.
Springsteen, Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen.
You know, you
Uh,
say it.
Yes.
No, but I hope everybody is feeling the energy and is still motivated with this whole weight loss journey and nutrition and exercise because we are only working on enhancing our ability to be the best people that we can be when we show up for everything that we need to be for in life. So, um, I want to continue where I left off last week. I know we talked about sunshine as being an essential component to our well-being. We did talk about the effect that light has on us, not only physically, but emotionally as well. And that goes into a whole holistic perspective of our being. We are mentally, emotional, physical, and spiritual beings. And what we do to one part of our body, we do to other parts of our body as well. So if we're on a journey to have better emotional stability, you have to engage those other parts of your being. You can't just think about it. You have to move, you have to meditate, you have to do things to engage all parts of our being. I wanted to just go back a little bit because in my conversation about the effect and the impact that light has on us, I spoke about it on a cellular level when we were talking about the mitochondria. And I realized it's been a while since many of us may have been in a bio class or a science class. So I just want to back up a little bit and talk about that. So when I'm talking about things on a cellular level, the cell itself is, according to science, is the smallest unit of life. So inside of each cell, there are different little parts that go into making sure that that cell functions properly. So when we talk about nutrition, we can't ignore what happens on a cellular level because that's where it all trickles down to the cellular level. When we have, and cells are different. We have eye cells that do certain things. We have liver cells that do other things. We have kidney cells that do other things, but they have their basic components. So when you have the same kind of cell together in a string of cells that are connected, you end up with a tissue, things that you call tissue. I took tissue from the liver, right? That's a strip of tissue that came from the liver. They're all liver cells connected together. When you have tissue wrapped together, then you have an organ. Like I mentioned, the liver. You have a liver, and that liver is made up of liver cells and liver tissue. When you have an organ, that organ then gets connected to an organ system. So all the parts of the digestive system are interrelated, interconnected. The cells vary because they do specialized things, but they're all part of one system. And then you have several systems, whether it's the respiratory system, the digestive system, the circulatory system, all the systems work together and harmoniously to function within our whole being, within our body. So we go from a whole being, a whole body with many different functional parts, all the way back down to the cellular level, where it has little um, individual parts also that all function together for the well-being of the cell. And the whole thing is so, I have to say, divinely orchestrated for it all together to work harmoniously. And when things are working fine on a cellular level, on and all the way up to the whole being, then you're in balance. You're in homeostasis. Homeostasis just means that everything is in balance. So I just wanted to put that into context when we're talking about what we need to do for our well-being, because it all translates back down to what is going on the cellular level. Because if it's not functioning on a cellular level, it's going to create imbalances all the way through that system. So to go back now to what we talked about last week, just as a little review, we talked about the fact that sunlight has all the different colors of the rainbow and more, different kinds of electromagnetic radiation that comes from the sun that all goes towards helping to nurture us. We talked about the fact that there are wave frequencies for each of the different colors. We talked about the fact that red is a slow, low energy and a long frequency. And we talked about the fact that blue light is a short, high level frequency. We talked about the fact that blue light is very penetrating, particularly in the eyes. And we talked about the effect that blue light has on us, as a system. So blue light, which is very present in the early morning, like from sunrise to for like the first 3 hours, is when blue light is dominant, most dominant in the environment. And the effect that that has is that it causes us to be alert. It causes us to be have like an enhanced mood. It's like when you wake up in the morning, if you most notice most kids, when they wake up in the morning, they're like, bam, they're ready to hit the road. And it's like, well, what are we doing today? They're ready to get going, right? Because they're healthy for the most part. And if we're healthy too, we're like, I'm ready for the day. You may not bounce out of the bed like a kid will, but you're ready to meet the day. That's the effect of that blue light in the environment. We also talked about the fact that it also has effects on certain hormone productions, like serotonin, like cortisol. Cortisol gets produced in the early morning hours. It makes us alert. It makes us wakeful. It makes us get ready for the day. And I'm talking about balanced levels of cortisol, not excessive amounts of cortisol. We also talked about the effect of artificial blue light, and particularly when we're having blue light during the evening hours, right? So when you have blue light, which comes from, we get bathed in blue light, nowadays because we spend so much time indoors. We get blue light from the lights in our homes. We get blue lights from LED and fluorescent lights. We get blue light from computer screens and cell phones and billboards. And we just get bathed in artificial blue light. And the challenge with that artificial blue light inside, particularly in the evening, is that it's a high energy, it's stimulating. And what it does is that it keeps us awake. It keeps the brain saying, it's daylight, it's still daylight, it's still daylight. And it stimulates you to stay awake. And that's why people kind of get fixated with being on their devices, being on their computer screens, and being on their handheld devices. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're supposed to be sleeping, and you're gonna pay for this the next day, but it keeps you stimulated. And we also talked about the impact that it has on the dopamine levels of the brain also. So, and we talked about it on a cellular level when we said that light affects the mitochondria of the cell. So again, a mitochondria is it's one of the organisms that's inside of the cell. Does anybody remember what the role of the mitochondria is in the cell?
Come on now, don't be shy. Come on, you can do this.
So I'll tell you.
Energy.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just about to say that energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
There you go. So mitochondria, we call them the powerhouses. They're like little battery packs inside the cell, and they're responsible for making ATP, which is the energy that we function from. Mitochondria provides the energy for the cells to do what they do. Yeah. Right? So it's the energy. And mitochondria actually breathe. There's mitochondrial respiration. They actually breathe. They take in oxygen and nutrients from the blood, and they expirate carbon dioxide and waste, right? And so the mitochondria are responsible for making sure that you have the energy available to do all the things that you need to do, right? So it's essential for those mitochondria to be functioning properly. And depending upon what kind of cell we're talking about, what kind of organ we're talking about, there can be, various numbers of mitochondria present in the cells. When you're young, you have a lot of mitochondria that get produced. As we get older, we get less and less mitochondria production. And, so you see the decrease in energy in older people. And we're talking about typically, right? Older people versus younger people, right? A lot of that has to do with the mitochondrial production, right? So the mitochondria work best, when you're in harmony with the whole circadian cycle. That blue light is responsible, natural blue light is responsible for setting our 24-hour circadian cycle. When we've got the artificial blue light coming at us off the screen, it completely throws off our circadian cycle, because this blue light is saying, it's still daylight, it's still daylight. And what happens is the mitochondria is still forced to function, right? because when the sun goes down, the mitochondria slow down and they go into repair mode. Now, I know we had a conversation about what happens in the daytime and the nighttime. Nighttime is repair mode. So that's what the mitochondria do normally when the sun goes down. It also is responsible for that melatonin production, that sleep hormone. So if you're still in front of a screen or you're still under the light, and you haven't toned down the lights in your environment, those mitochondria are still active. The melatonin is not being produced, saying it's time for me to start getting ready for bed. You're not getting those natural innate signals that are signaling to your body it's time for repair, it's time for rest. And so what happens is eventually the mitochondria get very fatigued and they stop doing the job that they're supposed to do. And part of what they do is, as I spoke last week, they take glucose from the bloodstream and they use that glucose to make the ATP, to make the energy. They use it to make the energy. So once they start getting overly fatigued, they're not really doing their job, right? They're not doing their job well at all. So then you have excess amounts of glucose that are still floating around the bloodstream, leading to what kind of metabolic disorder that we all know about?
Diabetes.
Absolutely, diabetes, right? That blue light has an effect on insulin resistance, right? Your mitochondria get stressed, and you know it signals to the body that I can't process this glucose. This is going to be floating around in the bloodstream, and your body is going to make more fat reserves, especially around the belly. It'll make more fat reserves around the belly, and that's going to work against your weight loss issues. And a lot of times, I mean, who would connect me being up at night on the computer with the fact that I'm having problems trying to get rid of this extra weight that's on my belly, right?
Mm.
So it's important to make sure that we're looking at health in a holistic way. It's not all about just working out in the gym, right?
Right.
It's about making sure that you're respecting your body's circadian cycle, because your body has to do certain things at certain times. There's settings on each of our organs for it to do certain things at certain times, right? So, and I mentioned to you also the effect that it has on the hormone production for the ghrelin and the leptin, right? That ghrelin, the hunger hormone, the hormone that says I'm hungry, it's time for me to eat, gets overly produced when you're not sleeping, when you're under that blue light, because it suppresses the melanin production, right? And it has an effect on the ghrelin and the leptin. So you tend to just eat more unnecessarily. So that's just a little bit of a review. And I wanted to go into a little bit more on on the function of the mitochondria in your cell, because again, everything is going to kind of come back down to mitochondrial functioning. We're exercising, we want to feel more energized. How are we going to feel more energized? If we're doing the things that are going to make sure that we're actually nurturing ourselves on a cellular level. And there are a number of different things that are going to impact that. I'm going to refer to some of my notes here because I want to make sure that I stay on point. I don't want to go too far. I don't want to go too far off point. So some of the things that can be damaging to the mitochondria, in addition to not getting enough sleep, we have one of the other things that are basic to our health, and that is hydration. Hydration is extremely important to mitochondrial health. And again, when I'm saying mitochondrial health, we're talking about our body's ability to convert the things that we eat into energy. So we feel better, right? And we're burning properly. So hydration. Hydration is essential because if we're not drinking enough water, then it means not enough water is getting into all of our cells. And the water that goes into our cells is going to be carrying in nutrients and it's going to be carrying out waste. So what happens when we don't have enough hydration, enough water, it means that mitochondrial function is slow. It slows it down. So it's not able to process, it's not able to get rid of the waste. It slows down the mitochondrial function. Then we have movement. Movement is essential for mitochondrial health. So our exercising, our movement is really important because And even if we're talking about not even a complete workout, just moving our arms, moving our legs, because some people just sit all day. People get to a place where they're just sitting all day. They sit from one place to the other, and they're not really moving their body. When we're moving our skeleton and the muscles that are attached to our skeleton, it signals to our body that we're well. Right? When we're sitting too long, that's not good and it's not healthy. And that movement, that pumping movement that we get from exercising, whatever form of exercise we're doing, it's forcing things in and out, the fluids in and out of the mitochondria, in and out of the cell. So movement is very important on whatever level. Again, sleep, right? Sleep is really important because it helps to recharge the immune cells while you're at night. It also helps for the drainage of the lymphatic system, especially in the head region, and that's important to mitochondrial health as well. The brain is one of the most mitochondrially rich parts of the body in terms of the cells that have a lot of mitochondria. Not surprisingly, the heart as well, loaded with mitochondria, right? Because there's a lot of energy that goes on in both of those organs. So sleep is a major importance. Then you have medical issues, like if you have thyroid issues, whether it's hyper or whether it's hypo, it's going to affect the mitochondrial function. So make sure that it's being addressed. If you know you have a thyroid issue, make sure you're having that issue addressed with your physician. Adrenal function also, if there's any challenges with the way in which the adrenals are functioning, that's going to have an impact on mitochondrial function systemically, as well as the sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone. Again, they need to be in balance in order for the mitochondria to do its job well. And um, and also blood sugar. Blood sugar is really important to keep it in a normal range so that's not it's not having a negative impact on the mitochondria. Now, some of the things that can actually help to nurture mitochondria function, mitochondria use, not surprisingly, they demand a lot of nutrients. They're producing a lot of energy, they demand a lot of nutrients, hence the importance of having a diet that is nutrient rich. The mitochondria particularly love B vitamins. So it's important to, look up the foods, because we all have different kinds of diets. Look up the foods that are B vitamin rich, right? So that you can make sure you have those in your diet. B1, B2, B3, B6, B5, you know, um, biotin, those are all really important B vitamins. And so in addition to just making sure you have those in your foods, you might want to think in terms of taking a supplement as well as a B complex. B complex is a water soluble vitamin, and we use a lot of it. So, even though you might take a vitamin right now, a vitamin supplement, it doesn't hurt to take a B complex supplement as well, right? Because it's just it's gonna go through your system pretty easily. Your body uses a lot of it. Also, NAD is a supplement that helps with the mitochondrial function, and also trace minerals like calcium and magnesium, and also trace minerals. A lot of times we don't get enough trace minerals in our diet. So taking a trace mineral supplement certainly would not hurt. I know I take a trace mineral supplement because a lot of those, even though we only take small amounts of them, we only need small amounts of them, they're so sorely lacking in our natural diet. So a supplementation of a trace mineral would be helpful. Also, CoQ10 is another supplement that helps to nurture the mitochondria, especially the mitochondria of the heart. It helps all over, but again, those mitochondria rich cells, it's going to really help. So taking something like CoQ10 will also help it as well. And alpha lipoic acid also helps in the function of mitochondria. We also talked about, again, well, let me just mention a few things that can actually be damaging to mitochondria, particularly because, mitochondria are pretty sensitive. And we want to make sure we're doing things to help support it and not damage it. So let's see. Some of the toxins for mitochondria are things like environmental toxins, of course, heavy metals that come in the water, chemical toxins, those are just environmental toxins, smoking, alcohol, things that we know are problematic, are of course problematic on a cellular level, and biotoxins like mold that are in the environment. Poor diet, a diet that doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. Eating the foods that are just filling us up but are not really giving us the nutrients that we need can be problematic because those mitochondria need the raw material to work with. And chronic illness can be a problem for mitochondrial function also, because when you have a chronic illness, it kind of signals to the mitochondria to power down, so it's not really producing as much energy as it normally would. So most of the problems with mitochondria, if it's not genetic, and most of the time if there's some type of mitochondrial disorder that's genetic, it usually shows up early on in childhood. And there's genetic testing that can be done to determine whether a person has mitochondrial disorder or not. But most of them are functional, and we have control over them. So, uh, just some suggestions. You might want to consider getting a water filter, like getting those, portable kind of containers that can filter water, so you can use them in things like cooking, you know, um, to just kind of help filter out some of the additional heavy metals or toxins that might be in the tap water that you use. And we're just taking um, extra steps to help our bodies, because we do live in a very um, toxic environment, unfortunately, on many levels. So a water filter is very helpful. We can also really reconsider habits that we already know that we have that create problems. We've talked about, alcohol before. We know that alcohol is considered a toxin by the body. We talk about it in different ways, socially, but on a very physical level, it is, it's not called intoxication for no reason. That word toxic is inside of there because it is an actual poison to our bodies. It breaks down our body's cells. It destroys our cells completely. And, it's a problem. Smoking also, both of those habits. So we might want to reconsider and examine those habits. Filtration devices for the air, so we're not breathing in environmental toxins that are airborne environmental toxins. So considering getting an air filter for maybe your home environment. And also, if there's any kind of a mold condition, you need to actually have that remediated like as quickly as possible. You're not supposed to be breathing in molds in your environment. So if you know there's a mold condition in your home, and it could be something as simple as the rugs. It could be padding in the rugs. It could be the filters in the air conditioner. I know I had an environmental company come into my home a couple years ago, and just because my daughter had asthma, and I wanted to make sure that there was nothing environmentally that was triggering her. And it was surprising to see the number of things that showed up in the house. We'd had wall-to-wall carpeting, took up all that carpeting because all the padding underneath it, all that had to come up. There was any number of things that we had to do to just make sure that there was a reduction in those kind of things that could cause environmental triggers for something like asthma. And of course, the asthma went away, after we, cleared those things up out of the home environment. So do yourself a favor and reduce that load, that environmental things can actually put unnecessary weight and pressure on the functioning of your mitochondria. Of course, diet and nutrition. You want to make sure that you have a high level of nutrition. And, of course, we'll talk more about the kind of things that we can be eating. But again, the B vitamins, the multivitamin, the trace minerals, the CoQ10, the alpha lipoic acid, the NAD are all great. So, and we can come back and talk about red light therapy and how red light itself, which is a big topic these days, red light therapy goes into actually stimulating and energizing the mitochondrial function. So I see we're rolling up on the end of my little talk here, but we can talk a little bit more about the impact that can have and what's available in that whole arena of uh light therapy that is or phototherapy that is making the rounds right now and is very, very effective in helping to even do things like lowering glucose levels in your body just through getting that sunlight on your body, as amazing as that is. So I think that's it.
Well, that's good. I appreciate it, Scott. But before you go,
Mhm.
let me just say, first of all, personally, I can't get enough nutrition because, I come from a world where it's all about exercise, and I learned that nutrition really is a very important part of overall health. And so now whenever I hear a nutritionist speak, I'm all ears because there's always something more to learn. You know,
Mhm.
especially holistically for the body. But Kilana has a couple questions in the chat.
Mhm.
Can you see the questions, or should I read it for you?
If you can read it to me, I'm not looking at them. Mhm.
Okay, the first question is, I heard from some sources that vitamins in gummy form are just as effective as in tablet form, but they're more sugary. But other sources say that they're not as effective. What is your take on this? That's the first question.
Good question. Um, they usually are not as nutrient dense as tablets and capsules, right? Because you have more, even though it may not be white sugar, it might be a healthier sugar, but they still take up much more space with the deliverer. The gumminess is the deliverer of the supplement. So you have less, it's a less potent form of the vitamin. It's great for kids if you're trying to get kids to get their vitamins in, but you might have to give it to them a couple of times. And yeah.
Okay, good. And number two, if you take a multivitamin, is that enough in some cases, or should we also take additional, more specific vitamins along with the multivitamins, like a vitamin B complex or vitamin D alongside the multivitamin? What's your take on that?
Well, I would recommend you get some blood work done, right? Go to your practitioner and have a blood panel done, and take a look and see what's going on, because they can tell you like your levels of vitamin D. They can tell you, they're not going to tell you all the different levels, but I personally recommend just taking a supplement, right? And oftentimes, I'll look at you have to look at the label of the particular supplement to see how much of a particular things are in there. But, vitamin D is something that I always recommend supplementing, unless you are in an environment where you're getting a lot of sun during the course of the day. We're usually vitamin D deficient. Vitamin B will help you to mitigate stress. So if you're dealing with any kind of a stressful situation in life, B vitamins are also very helpful. Don't take them on an empty stomach, and and you should take them during the day. And uh, your oils, the oils that you're trying to get in, I would get those in during the day also with meals because we need healthy oils in our system. But I do recommend supplementation. And if there's something that you're dealing with in particular, there are certain vitamins that will address particular issues. If you have an eye issue, there's certain supplements that are going to help strengthen the eye. So yes, you can certainly zero in on specifics for your health.
Okay, but this is a really good one, and I know the answer. I want you to speak on this. What's better, D3 or D3 plus K?
I
And
do
why?
the D3 plus K.
Right.
Mhm.
But why? Why should you also try to include K?
Because it really helps with bone health, and
Hmm.
they work together. So again,
Yes.
it kind of depends on what your body's needs are. I know that I have osteoporosis that runs in the paternal line, the women in the paternal line in my family. So I just take that proactively.
Yes. And D3 is so important, especially during the fall and winter months, especially because you're not
Mhm.
getting as much sun, for most people. So,
Yeah, and even in the summertime, people still avoid the sun. It might be sunny outside, we're spending more time outside, but people are doing a lot of things to avoid the sun, and we
right.
need to have the sun on our skin. We need to have it hit our bodies. Like I make a point, like, I mean, it's cold right now, but I make a point of sitting in the window when the sun is passing by my window. I sit in the sun, and take in like an hour of sun. And I want it hitting my eyes, right? Because there's certain things that go on when the sun actually hits your eyes in terms of the melanin production and palm seed production. There's a whole nother chapter that we can talk about just your overall health and well-being just from getting that sunlight on your skin.
Yes, and that's good because I know a few weeks ago, Kilana asked a question, and I wasn't sure about it, but I think the question was when it comes, she's in Colorado and it's extremely cold, right? But so she don't want to be hanging out there for the sun because it's too cold to be hanging outside. But can she get the benefit from being looking, through the window? Can she say? And you say yes,
Yes, I mean, there is some filtering that goes on
Mhm.
with the glass, but
Right?
it's still going to be better than not.
That's great.
Hmm.
That's great. I'm sure Keelana's happy to hear that. Denise said, I've heard that Black women are more prone to D deficiency. Black people, actually, right?
I think we're more sensitive to it,
Hmm.
right? But you know, D deficiency is a nationwide issue, you know, but yeah, we're definitely more sensitive to it. And also, there are individuals even within that spectrum who are even more sensitive to it because we suffer from the winter blues when we don't have it affects us emotionally when we don't get sunlight on our bodies. It can really have that impact.
Right, because our skins was naturally darker from being in Africa, basically. And that was a protection from being out there in the sun all the time.
Hmm.
But now being in a cooler climate, where and getting that you're not getting that kind of sun is not really penetrating your skin like it would. It was basically a darker the skin is because of protection from the sun. You
Hmm.
know, but being out here in the Western Hemisphere, out here it's a little different because
Hmm.
of you're not getting as much sunlight, and so that's why I said, especially in the fall and winter, they did a study. These doctors and they said they called the cold and flu season low vitamin D season.
It's absolutely essential. Like if you feel like you're coming down with something, increase your D2, D3 levels.
Okay, great. And Zena said Black women are known to have a deficit in D. The doctor told me to do the same. Sit in the window and get as much sunlight as possible. There you go.
Hmm. Roll up your sleeves,
Go to sleep. Let's
put
do
something
it.
sleeveless on, get it on your body.
Yes. Okay, Denise says, thanks, Sky. I love this portion of the program. Okay, and I know time has been far spent, but it's been great. And it's being recorded, but I'm going to download it and upload it tomorrow morning. So those of you who want to listen to this section again, you have a chance to listen to Sky. This is really a fabulous presentation. I
It's
appreciate it.
my pleasure. And I want to get some feedback from you guys, when you're actually applying some of the things that we're talking about, I'd love to hear what impact it may or may not be having on you.